Jeff for over 20 years. When I first met him, he was a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. And I was always impressed with him and immediately attracted to him because he would refer to his dress blue uniform as his Yankee blues. He is from Alabama. Where did John Eidsmoe go? John must still be in the back somewhere, but John is from Alabama as well. So I'm afraid that what we're going to have here is some sort of synergism of fusion or fission or something here with these diehard sons of the Confederacy that love the South. You know, they're just men who love the South, and the value of that is that it gives them a tradition of loving the Constitution, and they love the Constitution, and they love the truth, and they love the Scriptures, and that informs them. So we're very pleased to have both of them here. And Jeff is after he retired from the Army as a JAG officer working with Special Forces, he went to work at St. Mary's Law School in San Antonio, and after 9/11, he, through his sources in the military, discovered there was no law school anywhere in the U.S. that taught anything about terrorism law. And so he put together a business plan, took it to the powers that be at St. Mary's to establish a center for the study of law and terrorism, which was established here. He's been frequently interviewed in numerous news outlets, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, many, many other news shows. I've in just the last year or so, I know I've heard him on quoted on a number of different shows or interviewed here in Houston, and so he is just an absolute expert in his field. He's even debated in public debate the president of the ACLU, and I'm sure she was just completely devastated by him, right? So Jeff is going to come now and speak. So when he finishes, we'll have another opportunity for Q&A before we go to lunch.
Thanks, Robbie. Robbie, before you get out of here, I've got a small presentation I'd like to make to you for your work here. This is a nice little coin. We have coin checks in the military, and this is our Center for Terrorism Law coin. And also, I'm going to give you a copy of my latest book. It looks good from 5 feet away. I don't know about the rest of it, but
I think I have edition 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Now you have 6. I think that's 6.
You all have 6.
Yes,
great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Glad you could be here.
Okay, well, it's a great pleasure to be here, and I know that that the function of this conference is to really think great thoughts, so we'll try to do that in the next hour and a half. Before I get into my topic, I'd like to spend a couple of minutes talking about our Center for Terrorism Law, what we are, what we do, and then from there we'll get into the topic du jour, talking about the various laws associated with the quote-unquote war and terror, and we'll see two phenomenon. We are at war, and war is not just about putting steel on target. It's also a propaganda issue, and there's a propaganda aspect to this war that's quite disturbing because in many cases we are losing the propaganda war primarily because we're doing it to ourselves. And so we'll talk about some of the issues. We'll talk about the Patriot Act. We'll talk about indefinite detention. We'll talk about targeted killing. And then we'll open it up for questions. So that's the battle plan. First of all, let me explain a little bit about our Center for Terrorism Law. There are 200 law schools in the country, and I did retire in 2000. I did 20 years in the military. I was a senior legal advisor to the U.S. Army Special Forces. I can say my friend is buying in about 10 languages, which is one of the critical skills I picked up while I was in the military. I've been a follower of R.B. Thieme for 30 years, introduced to him in a bar in Korea in 1982 by Craig Reinold, who is a member of the church, also a military officer. And you know, all of us, I think, that have positive volition, one of the things that characterizes positive volition is we have a baloney detector. And so many of us grew up in environments where we went to the Catholic church or this church or that church, but there's always something in the back of our mind that said, no. And of course, my military language, I have a different word, but I'll use baloney for this audience. And I had the same function. I went to a lot of different denominations. I even went to a Catholic school when I was a kid because I was a troubled child, and I always wondered why I was the only out of 5 kids that went to a Catholic school and the rest of my siblings didn't. My mom said she had to put me on a rope when I was little because I would tend to run away, and so I was put into that environment. But when I saw the Colonel's book, and he handed me a book called The King of Kings, and Craig's a man of few words. He just said, "You've got to find someone that you could submit to their authority," and didn't hand me the book. That's all he said. And you don't really have to say anything else. If you find someone that's on positive volition, as Colonel Thiem used to say, it's like shooting a duck in the water at 10 feet. And so it took. And I've been on his tapes for 30 years on a daily basis, sometimes multiple daily basis. And it's been, obviously quite a journey, and the good Lord has blessed me in so many ways as He has blessed all of us. So we all have our story about how the journey began. But just so I give you full disclosure, I am a card-carrying member, a taper, I guess. And occasionally I would get to the church when I had opportunities, and got to meet Katie and Regina and some of the folks associated with the church, and had the opportunity to meet the Colonel several times, and the privilege to know him personally to a degree. So our Center for Terrorism, I got out of the military in 2000, and I said, well, what do I want to do? I knew when I was in the military that I wanted to be a teacher. And when I was in the military, I taught a lot at different schools. But I also knew that because of my birth and things I had no control over, there was going to be a tough job. Because in the society in which I grew up, and the time in which I grew up, some of the things that they're looking for in law schools, I don't have them. In fact, I am the Antichrist for law professors. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm a Christian, I'm a male, I'm white, I'm from the South and proud of it, I'm a conservative, I'm ex-military, and I'm heterosexual. And so realizing those things early on, I figured, well, I better get more degrees than the average person applying to law schools because I want to teach. So I've got my basic law degree from the University of Alabama, and I've got 2 Masters of Laws, which is an LLM. It takes another year to get that. I got 2 of those. And then I've got a Doctor of Juridical Science, which takes 5 more years from the University of Virginia, which is the best law school in the South. I think number 7 in the nation, but who cares about that? So I was fully prepared. I had more degrees than Jimmy Carter has liver pills. And I wrote and wrote and wrote. If you look at my bio on our website, I've written a lot. And I was prepared. So I'm preparing myself as best I can for that day when I knock on the door and go to the law school and say, here's my credentials. Will you let me in? Now, if you go to the American Association of Law School website, you'll see right on the bottom that they don't like me. They will tell you right up front, we are looking for people of, and they'll give descriptions of various kinds, and I don't match those descriptions. Guess how many law schools with all my credentials, all my teaching experiences, and plus I'll show you my transcripts from all my law schools. It's A's. Guess how many law schools said, yes, we'd love to have you on the faculty? 0. Not 1. So how did I get on the law school? The grace of God. It's God put the door there. The door opened up. I got on this faculty. Within 6 years, I was the associate dean at that law school. And so I moved up the ladder fairly quickly by the grace of God and for no other reason. And tenure is also very nice to have. But my dean always wants me to say, I've done over 500 speeches since 9/11 all over the world. And so he wants me to give the disclaimer because people call up and complain at the law school when they hear me speaking from various forums. So the views I express today are my own. They don't reflect St. Mary's University School of Law. So if you call the dean and say, hey, this law professor believes in the death penalty, they already know it. Okay, and another indicator that I am the most conservative law professor in the school because 2 years ago they asked me to debate the most liberal law professor in the United States, and that's the president of the ACLU. Susan Herman. And I debated her at some law school up north in Boston and intellectually dismantled her. You can go to my website and see it, but it was an interesting debate because every person, I'll use the word person, from 5 or 6 states around in the Northeast came out of the woodwork, ACLU groups and subgroups, to sit in the audience. So it was not a friendly audience. And they were literally, they might have had the Holy Ghost or whatever they used to call it. They were vibrating. I mean, they were vibrating in the debate. And we'll talk about some of those points and what made them vibrate. Because when you can't intellectually engage, you have to go into emotion. And that's all you've got left. And they were emoting quite a bit. It's quite humorous. So anyway, our Center for Terrorism Law formed after 9/11, and I developed the scales of justice. Usually, see the scales of justice; they're perfectly balanced. Well, in this environment, common sense and history teaches you that when you're in time of war, that the balance between increased security and civil liberties has to bend some degree towards increased security. And so that's the premise I start with. I hate people that stand up and say, well, I'm very neutral. I don't have an opinion one way or the other. And I've heard many speakers in law schools, they try to tell you that. They're liars. Either that or they're a bowl of Jell-O. If you don't have an opinion, you've been studying the law for 10, 15 years, what are you? Just tell me what you are. Tell me up front what your opinion is, and then we'll deal with it. So I tell people right up front what my opinion is. I am a strict constructionist. And as Andy has indicated, what makes a liberal law professor and a conservative law professor different? The conservative law professor, I want to know what the founding fathers thought. I don't care what the whims of modern society think about cruel and unusual. To some liberals, cruel and unusual is you look at them the wrong way and they start crying. No, cruel and unusual. What did the founding fathers think about the stocks, so to speak, that we employed 230 years ago? What do they think about the death penalty back then? And that's what makes a conservative law professor. You're a strict constructionist. You want to know what the original thinkers thought, because these are the framers, these are the geniuses that set this system up, this system of checks and balances. And you're exactly right, Lord Acton. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So they developed a government of checks and balances so they can watch each other. And that's what I want to know. Now, the liberal law professor and the liberal judge, it's a living, breathing document. They use that term. And of course, it's the devil's playground. It can mean anything and everything and nothing. And now we've got a Supreme Court justice. Imagine you had plumbing problems in your house, and you're going to call up the local plumbing company and say, look, can you send somebody out? And the person that comes out, they've never fixed a faucet in their entire life. She's never been a judge. Kagan has never been a judge at the state level, at the local level, at the federal level, and now she's the Supreme Justice in the United States, sitting on the high court, never been a judge. Does that worry anybody? No, that's fine. No problem with that. It's surreal. It's absolutely surreal. In any event, that's what makes it, when you say, what's a conservative law professor? Conservative law professor, I want to know what the founding fathers thought. Those are the folks that put this thing together, not Kagan or Sotomayor or some of these other knuckleheads. They're not qualified to run the shoe department at Penny's. And yet there they are. Okay. So our Center for Terrorism Law, what is it? It's an emerging legal discipline. I coined the term myself, terrorism law, 10 years ago. I wish I would have patented the term, because when you Googled it back then, our center was the only thing that popped up. Today, everything pops up about terrorism law. It's a subset of national security law, and it deals, of course, with the threat of terrorism. About us, about our mission, this is an eye test for those in the back. I used to have eyes like an eagle. Now it's like a mole or something. Anyway, our goal is to examine the current and potential legal issues. You can tell my military background. I've got the mission here, the mission statement. And we look at that balance between increased security and civil liberties. And we pursue that goal through conferences, symposia, teaching, writing, commenting on, publishing things. There's some of our research fellows at work. Our wire diagram, again, I apologize for the size. We just developed these slides. I'm at the top there. We have a senior research fellow, which I call the senior operational fellow. This is a third-year law student, and I give that third-year law student the mission, and they pass the mission down to our senior research fellows, senior administrative fellows. We have a consultant here, Major General Alfred Valenzuela. I knew he was a great American. I first met him in the jungles of Peru when I had a $10,000 price tag on my head back in the day, and he was a mill group commander. And I walked into his quarters, and he had a big picture of Robert E. Lee above his fireplace. I said, this is a great American. He was a full colonel at the time, and I was a major, and we actually ended our careers. He was the 2-star general at U.S. Southern Command, and I was the deputy staff judge advocate at U.S. Southern Command. And he's a San Antonian also. So we do these law students to assist us in our mission. What are some of the things that we do? Well, we've done 2 amicus briefs to the Supreme Court already on behalf of our soldiers that were really tortured in the 1991 Gulf War, not this phony baloney waterboarding stuff. We regularly assist Congress, the Senate. I've testified before the Senate I've testified before the House. I've worked with the Senate. I work with the FBI. At least 4 times a year I teach at their senior leadership course. I was banned for about 1 year at one time because I was too critical of Janet Napolitano probably, but then I was reinstated. We received the J. Edgar Hoover Scholarship Award for 2 years in a row for academic excellence in the work we do with the FBI. One of the things that's very important to our center, we defend soldiers that are wrongfully accused of war crimes and also FBI agents for doing their job in the promotion in their mission, and we don't charge them a dime, of course. The individual on your left, his name is David Staffel, and you can't make this stuff up. You simply can't make it up. And David Staffel was a Green Beret soldier in Afghanistan in 2006. He's with his team in a remote area, and they're doing things that American soldiers always do. We are assisting the villagers. We're trying to promote goodwill. We're bringing in medics and docs, digging wells, doing those types of things, and also killing the enemy when we have the opportunity. So Captain Staffel had arranged for a convoy to come in to help treat the women and kids, because in that culture you can't have a male physician look at a female, so he's having some female nurses come in. He got information that the Taliban found out that the convoy was coming in. They were going to attack the convoy and kill everybody that they possibly could. Captain Staffel got a master sergeant. They got up on a hill overlooking a series of huts because one of the leader of this suicide attack had already infiltrated the village. They got their interpreter to go into the hut to get the bad guy to come out. Captain Staffel gave the order. The master sergeant blew his brains out. It's called a good kill. Now, what happened is, as I mentioned, this is a propaganda war. What occurred was the Taliban went to a neighboring city and they got a hold of an AP reporter. And they said, the Green Berets have murdered our village elder, which of course is a lie. Did the AP reporter bother to fact check? Of course not. They just published a story. Green Beret murders village elder. It was picked up by a general back here in the United States, read the story, ordered his subordinate general to prefer murder charges just based on the AP story against this captain and this master sergeant. The general refused to do it, so the general that read the story did it himself. Charges were preferred. They were handcuffed, taken out of Afghanistan. I found out about the case, called them up, testified at their Article 32 hearing, which is the equivalent of a grand jury investigation. I had a very detailed affidavit that I submitted in writing explaining how this is war, and under the law of war, which is the proper rule of law, you can kill them, you can detain them, and you can, if charges exist, you can try them by military commissions. In this case, they killed him. It's called a good kill. The Article 32 officer, when he took my testimony, immediately stopped the proceedings, recommended dismissal of all charges. All charges were dropped against these 2 soldiers, and 18 other cases that were getting ready to be prosecuted for similar cases, they were also dismissed. Now, what happened to the 2-star general that did this? He got promoted to 3-star. Now, why would he do such a thing? Why would he do such a thing? Well, as you know, in our current system, if you're a 1-star general and you want to be a 2-star general, a board meets and they select you for promotion, or 2-star to 3-star, 3-star to 4-star, or colonel to 1-star. It has to be approved by the U.S. Senate. Now, who controlled the U.S. Senate in 2006? The Democrats took control. So this general strategy was, I'm going to go before the Senate when my promotion comes up, and I'm going to tell them I'm concerned about war crimes and what our soldiers are doing. Look, I prosecuted all these people. So he was singing to the song, to the music that they were playing. And that was his motivation, apparently. I can't think of any other motivation. And I won't mention any names, but if you want to read more, you can go to our website and read about it. So anyway, we defend this soldier. We're currently defending this young Marine on the far right. His story, I got a call right after Christmas. His dad's a retired Navy SEAL. Called me up and said, hey, my son is in trouble. Can you help? I heard about your center. I said, well, maybe. I get calls from soldiers like the individual we had in Afghanistan that actually murder people. I don't take those cases. I've got to be convinced that they're innocent. And I looked at this case and I said, wow, this is another wow case. Or if you watch that commercial, it's sham wow. This Marine is out there with his platoon. One of his members of his platoon steps on an IED, blows off both of his legs and an arm. 2 days later, they have cameras set up everywhere in Afghanistan. They see the same guy that planted the bomb, planting another bomb. The Marine lieutenant radios back, permission to kill, permission granted. He gets 2 Marine snipers. They shoot the bad guy in the stomach and the leg. The bad guy rolls off into a ditch. Some other individuals rush out from the village, grab the bad guy, put him on a tractor, and start to drive away, to get away. The Marine lieutenant orders the Marine snipers to kill the tractor. shoot the engine block to stop them from getting away so we can have the Marine patrols come in and capture them. They shoot the tractor's wounded, it stops. People jump off the tractor, bad guy dies. 2 weeks later, he's relieved of command as executive officer and given a fitness report that says, do not promote into his career. And you can't make this up because he violated the rules of engagement. Without boring you with the details, it's again, these rules of engagement, it's unbelievable. We're tying not just one hand behind our soldiers. These are self-imposed. They're not required by the law of war. We do it to ourselves. We're asking our soldiers to go in and basically fight an enemy that doesn't fight fair. Women, for example, some of the rules of engagement, if you shoot the enemy combatant, he drops his weapon. If a female picks it up, you can't shoot her. And she'll just hand the weapon to another person to shoot you, or she'll shoot you herself. Night attacks are restricted. And it goes on and on and on. This lieutenant did nothing wrong. So we're trying to get justice for him, and that's what we're currently working on that case. So that's just some of the stuff we do. We have a distinguished speaker series where we invite people from Egypt and Israel and India to come and talk about different issues associated with the war on terror. Media events, I've done almost 3,000 media events, and that includes all the MSNBC, ABC, Fox News, CNN, Al Jazeera, French TV, BBC, a lot of radio shows, Washington Post, New York Times, from A to Z. Not because of my looks. Again, we're the only law school in the country that has anything like this. And just another bit of information. U.S. Northern Command was one of the things that Congress set up after 9/11, which is a combatant command in Colorado. They actually put out a letter to every law school saying, would you please send a representative to Northern Command because we want to talk about the new templates for our mission, the Posse Comitatus Act, how does that affect what we can do, can't do with law enforcement? And of course, they really didn't want input from law schools. They wanted to show the American people that, hey, we're not that scary. We're going to put our arms around the civilian community. And we all knew that. Guess how many law schools raised their hand and said, yes, we'd love to help our country? One. Guess how many law professors in that law school said, yes, I'd love to help my country? One. Military commissions. I work with military commissions also. Guess how many law professors work on the side of the government in military commissions? One. And I won't ask you to guess who that is. Been to Guantanamo Bay. I helped review the pleadings in the Hamdan case. I lecture at the Office of Military Commissions. I've been in coordination with the current prosecutor. I may be called down to testify at one of the new trials that's coming up in terms that the CIA techniques did not constitute torture. So there are legions of law professors that work on the other side. You can't shake a dead cat without hitting a clinic at some law school that works for the detainees, which is fine. But you would think, wouldn't there be at least one other person on the other side? And to me, that's been the most shocking thing, is just the lack of that. Debates. I love the debate law professors. I debated them on the Patriot Act, which we'll discuss in the next hour. I've debated them on everything you can think of, and it's easy. It's so easy. It's almost sophomoric. After I finished debating the president of the ACLU, I've got a humorous story. I got a call from another law school. Well, can you come debate some people up in this law school? It's in Tennessee, and Tennessee has good barbecue. A side note, one of the things that really disappointed me when I came to Texas, when we first got here, my wife's from Alabama, we came driving out, we saw all these barbecue signs. So, well, this couldn't be too bad. They got barbecue, and we discovered Texans don't know anything about barbecue. Stringy cow meat is not barbecue. Barbecue is pulled pork on a bun with some lovely sauce on it. That's barbecue, y'all. Okay, I'm gonna give you all a test. I'm gonna see how many true Southerners we have in this room. How many pastors that are true Southerners? What's the plural of y'all? Yeah, see, that's right. All y'all. It's like I said it up north, and it's like, huh? Is it you guys? No, it's all y'all. Okay. So, yeah, the media, and I'm always surprised when MSNBC has me on because they'll never have me on again. I was actually in New York when they had me on for a 2-day segment live, and the producer at one point got so fed up, she came in and said, you can't say that anymore. I said, fine, here's the microphone, I'm leaving. Oh, no, we still want you to talk. But it's all the grace of God. I had some other law professors, they love, so how do you all get on TV so much? How do you do all this stuff? How do you testify? I said, I don't do anything. I do not solicit. I don't advertise. I do nothing. It's all the grace of God, because it doesn't mean diddly blank in the long term anyway. Who remembers the 4-star general from 20 years ago? Nobody. Now it's, Ken, can you get me a cup of coffee once you retire? Well, I was a 4-star general. That's fine. Can you get the coffee over here? So, sic transit gloria mundi, folks, and we all understand that. If you're oriented to God's word, it's sic transit gloria mundi. And lawyers, we charge people for those Latin words. Res ipsa loquitur, that'll be $50, please. Sounds good. Okay, so, and I love testifying before the Senate. The last time I did was the Democrat, they still control the Senate. They had a hearing called, What Went Wrong with the Bush Administration? Why did they torture people? Now that's a real fair and balanced hearing, isn't it? You can tell from the title that they're totally neutral. They just want information. They invited 4 law professors from across the country to come testify. Well, they didn't invite me. The Republicans invited me. And all 3 of them, very smart, intellectually, high IQs, but they're all drinking the Kool-Aid. Oh, yeah, we torture people. Really? We've never tortured anybody. Never happened. For example, and we'll get to this, but I'm stealing my own thunder, but how many people think that we waterboarded individuals at Guantanamo Bay? Don't show your hands, but I bet you most people say, yeah, that happened. It never happened. It never happened. No one factually was ever waterboarded at Guantanamo Bay. Never happened. Well, we're sure it did. Who told you that? Who told you that? Where do you get your information? So we'll talk about that. I love to give out handouts to my class in national security. I'll give them a handout with loaded questions. And it comes back and like 90% of them, yes, we waterboard people at Gitmo. Never happened. Never happened. And on and on and on. The list goes on. Well, we never gave anybody a bath at Guantanamo Bay. There was only 3 people that were ever waterboarded, and they were done by the CIA at off-site locations. Not by the DOD, the Department of Defense, by CIA. And it did not take place at Guantanamo Bay. And there was only 3 people. 3. And the waterboarding technique we use, if you want to know what it's like, you can pay $60 and go to Six Flags, get the same experience. It's a joke. It's a joke. I'll come back to my testimony later because you don't want to miss this. That's when I got a lot of death. I got a folder with death threats. I know a lot of pastors probably don't get a whole lot of death threats. Maybe you do. I got a whole folder of them. I just get emails and phone calls. I just put them in the folder. When I'm gone, just hand it to the legal authorities. It might be one of those people. It might not. But I usually tell them, meet me in the parking lot and bring help. There's my gray pickup truck over there. And they don't show up. It's like when I had LASIK surgery. I had LASIK back when they did it by hand, a long time ago. And the doctor said, we want to do one eye? I said, no, just do them both. And he said, well, you're a lawyer. I said, yeah, I'm a lawyer, but I'm also in special forces. I'll kill you if it doesn't work out. I'm going to sue you. Probably not the right thing to say when he's doing it by hand. Okay, these are brand new slides. I apologize for the size, but the other ones were a lot bigger. We do a lot. The main teaching point here is we do a lot of conferences, training, and workshops. We did 4 conferences last year, 3 in San Antonio, 1 in Washington. We've done them in Cairo. We've done them in Jerusalem. We've had conferences in Paris and in Kuwait. I used to be hired by the State Department until 2006 to spread American values. They actually hire people to go around the country, different countries, and spread American values. And in 2006, and I would get glowing cables. I got glowing cables from the Kuwaiti Bar Association. They said, wow, this guy's really set it out straight. We never heard that before. We just thought you guys were illegal. And I just explained to them that we're at war. Therefore, what we're doing under the law of war is perfectly lawful. And glowing cables. Then in 2006, it all came to a grinding halt. Why? Because they don't like the values that I was spreading. Because I'm all about this country. We're the greatest country the world's ever seen. Probably one of the dumbest countries the world's ever seen, but we're the greatest still that the world's ever seen. And now they hire other people to go around to spread, to apologize, I suppose, for what all the wrongs that America has done. But maybe one of these days I'll be back with the State Department program. And then more conferences and more conferences and more conferences. And this is the book this is the 6th edition of the book. And it dispels a lot of the myths. It's a law book that I use, but it's also very readable. And in your materials, I've Xeroxed a lot of pages, which are in the materials that you have. If anybody wants to read more, I'm not hawking books, but they're $60, which is our cost. Amazon, I think, is $100. I'll be happy to let you have it for cost. But if you have any liberal acquaintances, then it's got all the stuff in here that you'd want to use. And as I told Robbie, it looks good from 5 feet away, and it's one of these old books you can actually hold in your hands and chew on. And it's 2011. I teach 2 seminars, and again, more book chapters from everything from A to Z, from interrogation to cyber to bio, from publications that range from London to Israel, Supreme Court briefs, and I think I've got a handout up here, which is the misuse of religion and the war on terror. Perhaps during the lunch break you can come up and get one. I've also got a great article that I'll make available. I think it's on our website on the anthropic principle, which is one of my thickest law review articles because you really just can't say nanny, nanny, poo-poo. You should teach the anthropic principle in intelligent design in the public schools. It requires a lot of research. And so I'd highly recommend, if you want to read more and to get into detail about what the anthropic principle is. It's a fascinating doctrine. One of the most enlightening studies, they did a survey of scientists, our top scientists in the country and across the world. And the survey asked them the question, are you an atheist or do you believe in a God or et cetera, et cetera? The vast majority said, yes, we're atheists. And then the great follow-up question was, why you're an atheist? And you would expect that, well, because of the power of the theory of evolution, because of the power of materialism. That's why I'm an atheist. No, that wasn't their reason. They said, because I cannot accept the idea of a God that would allow suffering in the world. They don't even buy their own theory. No one believes in Darwinism anymore except for biology high school teachers. They don't. The folks from Yale and Harvard, it's punctuated equilibrium now. One day something appeared and boom. The transformation is so rapid. Gradualism is dead. And the only people that believe in it, again, is some of these TV shows and high school biology teachers. The top folks don't believe in it. Not at all. But that's another story, and I digress. But it's nice to have a hobby. So, more law review articles, and more and more and more. In fact, the output that our center does, we probably produce about half of all the publications that's produced by the law school of 30-some professors, more or less, including the shorter ones and the longer ones, but maybe not half, maybe a third, probably to be perfectly clear. But that's a lot. That's a lot. We have a lot of partnerships associated with what we do. Okay, so now we're going to get into the topic du jour. What we're going to talk about, of course, is the war on terror, some of these legal issues, and I know it's part of the focus of this conference, and what Robbie asked, the pointed question, what can we as pastors do? And when I say we, I do teach a Bible class at St. Mary's Law School. Twice a day we're working on this on the weekends. And why? Because the door opened. People knew early on that I was a Christian, and because I have a big picture of RB Theme in my office, and you go in my office, I got a gigantic diagram of from the prodigal son with the circles, top circle, bottom circle, the whole 9 yards. So the Christian Legal Society would always invite me to come speak. And I would always come into the Christian Legal Society and I'd say, look, if you guys really want to do what the Word of God says, disband immediately. Because they're all about human good. How can we whitewash the devil's world? How can we get involved? What can we do for this and that and the other thing? I mean, my idea of social justice is get a rope. Most people's idea of social justice is, well, we got to go out and do this and do that. That's fine. I accept the fact that the world is the devil's kingdom. We know that. So how do we make things better? There's only 2 ways. One, you get rid of Satan. Ha-satan. You can't do that. And this is his world. He's the ruler of the world. And Democrats come and go, but the Word of God stays forever. So you get rid of Satan, which you can't do, or what to do. What should pastors do? And here's what you should do. Do nothing. Do nothing would be my message, and I know Robbie's going to ask me the question. There's the answer. Do nothing. Do not get involved in the siren song of political activism or social activism or the history of the day, because it changes. History changes. And things come and things go. Things come and things go. You cannot reform the devil's world. You put some whitewash on it here and there and do things, make yourself feel good, but you only got so much time on the game clock. And a lot of us in here are game clocks on the other side. We don't have a whole lot of time. When I was young, and all of us had these ideas, well, if we could all just love each other. And then I had my first beer, And I can't say that word, my first fist fight, and I realized the world's not that way. And people that have these signs that say violence never solves anything. Of course violence solves things. What do you think stopped Adolf Hitler? What do you think drove Saddam out of Kuwait? The proper application of violence. So do nothing. As a pastor, you teach the Word of God. You teach the principles of divine establishment. You teach the principles of privacy, the individual. You teach the principles of marriage, which was not designed for happiness. We know that. I know we got a lot of divorcees in here. Don't raise your hand. Hey, it happened to Moses. First wife left him with the kids, right? It was designed for stability. Bible doctrine is designed for happiness. And then the family unit, of course, the nuclear family. That's what I emphasize with people. When I was in the military, I was never excited about dying for my country. I wanted to go back on Saturday night, drink a beer, and fraternize with the opposite sex. You got to say that in the military these days. And then the fourth, of course, is the state, or as Robbie adds, nationalism also. Teach these principles, and the congregation will find their way to the polling place, or to hand out leaflets in the neighborhood, or to get involved, or to write their congressman, or do this and do that. It's not your job to do that. It's your job to teach the principles. Well, can't we conjugate the Greek verbs? No. They don't speak that. They speak English. And most of them don't speak English very well. And it's wonderful to know the middle phrase in the book of Romans and how all these things fall together. And that's great. But teach them the doctrines. Hebrews chapter 6. Here's the categories of doctrines, folks. And I can't teach that to you. Or 1 Corinthians. You're babes in Christ. What did Paul say throughout his letters? Do you not know? Do you not know? Do you not know? Do you not know? What did Christ say? O ye of a little faith. Little faith, little faith, little faith. I told you that, I told you that, I told you that. Here's 12 baskets. What does that mean? Apparently nothing. Teach them. You teach them the Word of God, and they will go out. The pivot will expand. That's the only thing that keeps this nation afloat, is the pivot. It's always been the pivot. That's why we've been blessed from day one. I grant you the pivot's shrinking. We know it's shrinking because the political degeneracy follows the social degeneracy. Where does it stop? If I'm going to tell you who to vote for or how to vote and what to do, then I'm going to tell you to pull the pants up that are hanging down around your ankle. Or take the earrings out of your ears. Or whatever they're doing. You teach the Word of God. If there's positive volition, they will come. If you build it, they will come. If there's no positive volition, then that's the way it is. Remember Elijah? I'm the only one left. No, you're not. There's 7,000 that have not bent the knee to Baal. God knows everything. He knew it trillions of years ago. So, saw the wood in front of you, pastors. Here's the wood. Saw it. Now, if you want to get a power saw out, that's fine. Hold double classes. But, don't get sucked into the du jour item of the day. And that's my message. And there's the man looking at us all. And that's his message, as far as I can tell it, by the grace of God, after listening to it for 30 years and metabolizing it. Don't be tempted. It's very tempting because a right thing has to be done in the right way. That's RW. Remember the Colonel's teaching. A right thing. Yeah, it's a right thing to have people vote for the proper candidate. But if they can't figure this one out, they're beyond hope. This is not a close call. It's too late. And again, the time on the game clock's limited. You study, you teach. You study, you teach. Well, there's only 2 people here. That's fine. There's only 5 people here. That's fine. Whatever it is, it's not the numbers. Because if there's positive teaching and you're prepared, God will fill the pews to the maximum capability for the area, the geographic area in which you're located. And if that's 2 people, then that's 2 people. If it's 2,000, that's fine. In San Antonio, we've had an influx of population around 1604, 281. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of new people have moved in. And demographic studies are done on these people. And so business groups get together, and you could trace the new mega churches out on 16 and 4 that sprung up next to these population centers. Did they start out as small little organizations in people's houses that grew because doctrine was expanding and the positive volitions there? No. They sat down and do a business plan. We know there's X amount of suckers that probably came out of a Protestant background, because most of them are Protestants. We know that they got the 10% scam drilled into them as kids, and even if they cheat and only give 5%, we're still making a lot of money off these folks. Because they're white collar. So we're going to get a financing from the bank. We'll build a gigantic building, And they think about all this stuff. And then in they come and let's get the programs, folks. And how much doctrine is coming out of those churches. And people drive by and they're like, oh, look at that church. You can almost hear Christ saying, you idiot, stop looking at the temple. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. And they can whitewash the devil's world until doomsday. Doesn't do any good. And then they're going to be very shocked when they stand before the judgment seat of Christ and they will say, well, didn't I do this? Didn't I do that? Well, yes, and enjoy the bonfire. Warm yourself. Okay, so a right thing has to be done the right way. The right thing is, yes, I would love to live in a country. You want to talk about injustice? 150 years ago, my people were being killed on the battlefield to fight wonderful Abraham Lincoln. You talk about a PR message. Imagine the Gettysburg Address. We're all brainwashed this that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish. In other words, Abe, you've got to kill a third of the nation to have a government of the consent. What? A third of us don't consent, Abe. So you're going to kill us to make a government of the consent. But the kids don't think to the next level. Obviously, the families of these mature believers that you're turning out, they will tell their kids when they get home, hey, here's the real story about Abe Lincoln. It wasn't about slavery. It was about states' rights. Slavery's an evil. What about the slave states in the North? Do you know when slavery ended? You could buy and sell human beings for 10 months after the war ended. Abe? Really? They never taught us that. Did you ever hear about black Confederates that fought in the South to the death? Never heard about that either. So I re-educate, I deprogram my kids. Now, thank goodness we live in Bernie, which is like going back to the 1950s by the grace of God. We don't have to homeschool them. But Black History Month, yeah, you know, I have a gigantic picture of two people in my office because I also get to decorate our $700,000 facility. I have Robert E. Lee. Of course, I have Colonel Thiem. I have Robert E. Lee. And I've got Booker T. Washington. There's a hero for Black History Month. You've been to Tuskegee Institute? He built it. Who is his most famous student? Booker T. Washington. Carver. That's right. Peanut butter, which we all love peanut butter. Now, what was his philosophy? Put your hand out and demand my rights? No. Trust in God and saw the wood in front of you. His students built Tuskegee brick by brick. He didn't complain. He was a Bible student. God knows where I am. He knew trillions of years ago where I am. And if I'm a slave, remain a slave. If you see your opportunity for freedom, take it. But I'm God, the blind man that sat outside the temple for years and years and years. Heard the Pharisees walking by, discussing great theological issues. He was blind, he was an unbeliever, but he had common sense. God knew trillions of years ago the genetic combination that would make him blind. And of course, Christ healed him. His faith didn't make him whole. He was healed as an unbeliever. And he was a smart unbeliever because he tied the Pharisees up in knots. And later on, God found him. Christ went to him. Why? Because he had positive volition. He had positive volition. And when he heard the gospel, bam, I'll take it. I'll take it. So, saw the wood in front of you. Teach divine establishment, increase the pivot. That's my message. That's why it's a very short slide. Now, for us as pastors, we've got to be informed, no doubt about it. We've got to rightly divide current and contemporary history, obviously, and that's a legitimate function. So that's what I'm going to do here today. The premise of all this is critical. If we're not at war, we've done a lot of illegal stuff. We've detained people indefinitely without charging them with crimes. We've killed them with no due process. You're dead. Boom. You're atomic matter. We've tried them by military commissions. You can't do that unless you're at war. Unless you're at war, we violated our own Constitution. We violated international law. Now, if we are at war, it's perfectly lawful. So the rule of law, when people talk the rule of law is violated, really? There's two rules of law. There's a rule of law associated with domestic activity, criminal law, and there's a rule of law associated with the law of war. If we're at war, then the rule of law that applies is the law of war. If we're not at war, we've done a lot of illegal stuff. That's how I destroyed the president of the ACLU. Because from day one, military commissions, evil, Gitmo, evil, killing people, evil. They need to have a federal judge, need to charge them with a crime, on and on and on. And I told her, I said, we flipped a coin. Of course, she's a very skilled, intelligent woman. And she won the coin flip. And when you're in a debate, you always let the other side go first so you can stand up and say everything they said's a lie. And, of course, she said, oh, Addicott, you can go first. And, of course, as a Southern gentleman, no, please, you go first. No, you go first. But I knew her. I knew exactly what she was going to say. So I said exactly the same thing. If we're not at war, Susan wins the debate. I go home. I fold my briefcase and leave. But we are at war. Now, who tells us that we're at war? Is it Keith Olbermann? I was only on his show one time. It's amazing how people have these preconceived notions of what a law professor should be. And they don't really check my bio, I guess, or hear any of my speeches and go online. But Keith called me up and he expected me to slam the Bush administration. And when I got through with Keith, he didn't have me back. So are we at war? Who tells us? Is it Keith Olbermann, the New York Times? No, it's our three branches of government. The executive, the legislative, and the judicial. So what about the executive? Does the executive say that we are at war? And when did the war start? Of course, the war started on 9/11, when 3,000 people were incinerated. President Bush immediately said, as the Commander-in-Chief, Article 2 gives me the authority to be the Commander-in-Chief. That's all it says. When the framers set up the Constitution, they divided war powers between the Congress and the President. The President has the legal authority to make war. President Obama right now could make war against Libya. Oh, he already did. Without consulting the Congress. Oh, he already did that. Not illegal. Dumb. But not illegal, and thank goodness we live in a country where I can say it's dumb, but it's not illegal. I had people coming to me, Addicott, Obama's violated the Constitution. He violated the War Powers Resolution. He didn't go to Congress to get their authority. Doesn't have to. War Powers Resolution is unconstitutional. The War Powers Resolution was passed over the veto of Nixon, and it basically says that the president can make war for 60 days, and they got to come to Mama, Congress, to get approval. Where's that in the Constitution? You say I've got power, but you're limiting my power to 60 days? Well, who told you that? We just made it up. It's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court's never ruled on it, but it's clearly unconstitutional. One branch of government cannot take the power from another branch of government. What they can do is they can control the power of the purse. Congress say, we're not going to fund the war. They can do that. Remember the Democrats were saying in 2006, we're going to defund the war, defund the war, defund the war. When they took power, did they defund it? Of course not. They didn't defund the war. They increased funding. So Teddy Roosevelt, hands down, my favorite president. His foreign policy, in the military we have a saying called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. I'm not a smart person. And that's why the Koine Greek, God the Holy Spirit, didn't use the Attic Greek, the Boeotian Greek, Koine Greek, common Greek. When you tell your soldiers, men, I think we should kind of go up that hill. Let's take a stroll up the hill and take the hill. That doesn't communicate. Get your blum, blum, blum up the hill. That communicates very clearly. Yes, sir, we've got the mission. So it communicates. So KISS, I'm real simple. So the president has the very short, I'm the commander-in-chief, which means they execute war. The president can start a war anytime they want to, but again, the Congress can limit the budget. Teddy Roosevelt wanted to send the Great White Fleet around the world. We painted our warships white so people could see them. Why? Because, freedom through military victory. He wanted the world to see that, hey, we're a player. We've got a big military and we're not afraid to use it. Do not mess with us. Deterrence. The Congress was not really along with that idea, shall we say. They said, no, we're not going to fund it. And so Teddy said, that's fine. I see in the budget we've got enough money to send them to the Philippines, halfway around the world, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm sure the sailors would love to stay in the Philippines for a couple of months. I won't tell you why, but maybe you can figure that out. And then the president said, well, you can tell the American people why you haven't voted money to bring them back. So they did. So President Bush, this was not a metaphor like the war on drugs, the war on poverty, not a metaphor, a real war. Those are metaphors. This is a real war. And President Bush said, look, before 9/11, we used domestic criminal law to deal with Al-Qaeda. We put them in federal court. We tried them. I've got several cases here. The Blind Sheikh in 1993 that tried to blow up the Twin Towers, directly linked to Al-Qaeda. We didn't try him by military commissions. We gave him every right as a normal criminal. When 9/11 occurred, the president said, look, this organization is not like a criminal organization. They're like a nation at war. Now, they're not a nation at war because there's not a little card at the UN that says Al-Qaeda. But they act like a nation at war. They have a political structure, a military structure, a fundraising structure, and there's a lot of followers. They trained over 60 to 80,000 enemy combatants trained through the Afghanistan camps before we cut them down in 2001 when President Bush closed them down. That's a lot of foot soldiers. And so in a criminal organization, they don't want to destroy the country. They just want, as Tony Soprano would say, a taste. A criminal organization doesn't want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. What's the goal of Al-Qaeda? If you could have Al-Qaeda standing right here today, and as lawyers, we like to negotiate. I guess I can't negotiate because I'm hooked up. But we would say, what do y'all want? Do you want some... Oops. Did I get it? Are we hot? Do you want some land? Do you want some money? What do you all want? You know what their answer would be? Anybody? We want to kill you. That's our negotiating position. We want to kill you. And you would say, really? Yeah, that's our negotiating position. If you could get an Al-Qaeda man, and I've seen them, I've looked into their eyes in Guantanamo Bay. We want to kill you. No, really, we want some land? No, we want to kill you. So they act like a nation at war. Their goal is to kill. I think we're going to have to take a 2-minute break. Am I losing commo here? Thanks, Dan. That's how we lost at Gettysburg. Commo broke down, the Yankees got behind us. Thank you. Gettysburg, God, in His infinite wisdom, had to give the Yankees some help at Gettysburg. But anyway, that's another story. Now, just because we lost the war doesn't mean we're wrong, folks. It just means that God looks through history, and He knew that the nation had to remain together. So, but in any event. So Teddy Roosevelt sent the money around. Our president believes we're at war. President Bush has always said that. What about President Obama? Obama doesn't say it very much because we got this thing called politics that have popped in the way, and that's all the problem. That's all the problem. We understand we have two political parties, Democrats and Republicans. Now, logically, if you're a Republican, are the Democrats going to say good things about you? No. Otherwise, why elect me? Why elect me? I'm a Democrat. So we know that the Democrats criticize the Bush administration, and we kind of expect that. President Obama, are the Republicans going to say good things about him? Not necessarily, because otherwise, why elect me? So we start out with that premise that there's this friction in our country, the political friction. And we all know that politicians are like used car salesmen, aren't they? You go to a used car sales lot, and what does the used car salesman say? This is the best car on the lot. Really? Yeah, the best car on the lot, right here. Okay, I hope nobody believes them. And I don't care what the politician is. When they tell you something, I hope you have a little bit of skepticism. Oh, really? Okay. I want to see some deeds, And so when the used car salesman would stand there, I would say, well, okay, I hear you, buddy. Can you open up the hood and let me see the engine? And with this administration, with the Obama administration, when you open up the hood, there's no engine. There's no engine in the car. And you go, wow. From Alabama, there's 3 categories of lies in Alabama. There's lies, there's damn lies, and there's damn Yankee lies. We are in the 3rd tier when we're dealing with this administration. That's just a fact. No hard feelings. When I was in the military, and I've criticized President Bush, I've been to his ranch, I've met President Bush on several occasions, and he even knew my first name when I walked up. So President Obama hasn't called me lately. But I criticized President Bush. I was opposed to going in Iraq. My first edition, I said, don't do it. Do not do it. Once we went in, I was not going to leave until we won. There was no substitute for military victory. But going in, not a good idea. Not a good idea, folks. Not a good idea. I was opposed to opening up Gitmo in Guantanamo Bay, leaving from Afghanistan. Didn't listen to me. And I criticized President Bush for his handling of the Moussaoui case, for his handling of the Richard Reed case, with quite a lot of enthusiasm that I criticized him. But again, nothing personal. When I debate other law professors about the Patriot Act or whatever it is, I will always conclude my remarks and I throw a question to them. How would you recommend that we fix it? I've heard you demonize the Patriot Act. What would you recommend that we do to fix it? Every one of them say the same thing. Oh, we don't want to give any advice to the man. We want to be neutral. What? I don't want to be neutral. I want to win. We're at war. Why in the world do you want to be neutral? Because they're up in these academic ivory towers. And so when I criticize the Obama administration, nothing personal, but I'm an American. I don't care about your politics or getting you reelected. I worry about what's great and what's good for this country. Right after 9/11, I got a call from my old 2-star general, General Bora, who was in command of all the Green Berets. He said, Addicott, I'm going to bring you back on active duty and make you head up all the terrorism legal aspects for the Army. And we'll make you a real colonel. I was actually a colonel for about 2 hours, which that's another story. We'll make you a full colonel this time for real. And I said, not interested. I can do more good for the country in this forum by going around the country and talking about the lies that are put out. Because the far left Democrats have put out absolute lies. Lie after lie after lie. Now, you expect them to criticize because of the political friction, but they're in the third tier of lies. And it started from day one. And you've heard it all before. You know, Gitmo's evil. We're torturing people at Gitmo. They're not getting a federal judge. They need to have a lawyer. It's illegal to hold them. They need to be tried by federal courts. You can't kill them. Afghanistan's illegal. And on and on and on and on and on. Dick Durbin said that Gitmo was a Nazi concentration camp. Really, Dick? Murtha said that we're murdering people. That's our modus operandi in the field. We murder people. Really? Really, Murtha? And why did these people do that? Power lust. Power lust. And yet they repeat it so long, and the media is their ally. There's no question about that. I mean, if you're an Obama supporter, you've got to at least recognize that more power to you, because the media is in your back pocket. The media is in your back pocket. I'll give you some examples, and I'll give you some illustrations of why I believe that's true. And my anecdotal evidence, I've done 3,000 interviews. I'll get calls from Wolf Blitzer. Addicott, what do you think about this? Oh, here's what I think about it. Click. They don't want to hear that. They put out what they want to put out. And anytime I have the opportunity, whether it's feast or famine, I put out divine principles as I see them. As I see them. And most of them are establishing principles, obviously. So the President Obama doesn't say it very often, but he does believe that we're at war, because every day that he holds people in Guantanamo Bay, that he holds them in the Obama facility. Oh, you didn't know there's an Obama facility? Did you think we stopped taking enemy combatants when President Obama took office? We don't send them to Gitmo anymore because that's the evil Bush place. That's what the Democrats told us. We send them to the nice Obama place. There's such a thing, a nice Obama place. And so when he sends them there, he's using it under his authority that we're at war. We're at war. He's only made a clear statement that we're at war one time, and that was in the wake of Ali Mutalib that tried to blow himself up over Detroit in that airplane. And President Obama was forced to get on TV, and you could tell he didn't really want to say it. And he said, and I praised him for this, he said, we're at war with Al-Qaeda. I love that phrase. In fact, I'd recommended it years before, because the war on terror is a lousy phrase. It doesn't describe what we're doing. But neither does World War II. World War II doesn't describe anything. If you're a purist, you would say it's the United States and its allies versus the German Nazis, the Italian fascists, and the Japanese imperialists. Too darn long would to say World War II. But most high school students, they don't know who the players were in World War II. It doesn't describe. The only thing good about World War II, it has the war word in it to let you know that we're using the law of war. The only thing good about the war on terror, it has the war word in it, which should let you know you're using the law of war. But a more precise term would be, we're at war against Al-Qaeda. And then you could also add, if you want, Taliban and associated forces, which I take from the 2006 Military Commissions Act. But terrorism is a tactic. You can't make war a tactic. It's a sexy term. I know Obama tried to ban it because it was a Republican term. The term he proposed was overseas contingency operations, which lasted about 2 days. And so the president believes that we are at war. He just never says it. But I like that term, war against Al-Qaeda, because it tells you we're at war. And it tells you who the enemy is. He's never said it since. And you've got to inculcate. If you're the commander-in-chief, your duty is to rally the American people, to be clear. Instead, he's done the exact opposite. Extreme schizophrenia. And the chief mouthpiece here is Holder. Has no idea what he's doing. I can't understand it. Either he's naive or he has no idea what he's doing. Maybe it's a combination of both, and we'll talk about some examples of that, but I'm going to get to my third tier. So Congress, the presidents both believe that we're at war. What about Congress? Well, Congress didn't declare war, Addicott, therefore it's an illegal war. Really? I've listed all the wars we've had in our history. We're a very warlike people, which is good, because you better be a warlike people if you're going to be a free people. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And of all the wars we've had, and we've almost had about 100 wars, small and big. Guess how many times Congress has declared war? 5 times in 5 of the wars. Now, by the logic of the liberals and the far left, that means all the other wars are illegal because they didn't declare war, which includes the Korean War, not declared, which includes the Vietnam War, not declared, the 1991 Gulf War, not declared, 2003 war against Iraq, not declared, the Grenada campaign war, not declared, Panama, not declared. Well, you never hear them say that those are illegal wars in the large. Congress just doesn't declare war. They authorize war. And that's what Congress does. They authorized the Vietnam War. They authorized the Korean War. They authorized the 1991 Gulf War. They authorized the 2003 campaign against Al-Qaeda, against the Iraq, Saddam Hussein. They authorized the 2001 war against Al-Qaeda. So the authorization for use of force is tantamount to a declaration of war. And then also Congress believes we're at war because they passed 2 military commissions acts. You can't have military commissions unless you're at war. And they fund the war. So yes, Congress believes that we are at war, not a metaphor. What about the Supreme Court? I got a phone call. The Supreme Court's had 3 series of hearings so far. The first have been, well, we're here on this slide. The first hearing, the first Supreme Court decision, 2004, Hamdi, Hamdi. Hamdi was a U.S. citizen. His case went up to the Supreme Court, and his argument was this: look, I'm a U.S. citizen, and therefore you cannot detain me because this is not a real war. I got a call from a Chicago newspaper when the decision came out, and they said, oh, this is the great victory for the people and a great defeat for the Bush administration. I said, really? Did you read the opinion? No. Well, let me just read something to you. It was an opinion. It was a plurality opinion by Justice O'Connor, and I just read. I said, the fact that we're at war. I said, let that soak into your brain. The fact that we're at war, comma. And I said it about 5 times. The Supreme Court has always said that this is a real war. What they've said in all the opinions, to give you a nutshell version, is that, look, this is not like other wars. The law of war was written when one nation state goes to war against another nation state. What's the problem? Al-Qaeda is not a nation state. Therefore, we want extra due process for the enemy combatants. And we're going to provide extra levels of due process that we've never done in any other war. Because these guys don't wear uniforms. They hide amongst us. They use our civil liberties against us. Most of them, when you catch them, oh, it wasn't me, it was some guy. And so the Supreme Court said we want an extra level of protection. So in Hamdi, they said, yes, the president can designate you as an enemy combatant. It doesn't matter if you're a U.S. citizen, but you get another set of eyes. We want a tribunal to overlook that decision to check the math. The Department of Defense created the Combatant Status Review Tribunal to fulfill that mandate. In 2008, the Supreme Court reversed itself and said, oh, we didn't really mean what we said in 2004. We now demand that a federal judge be that another set of eyes that checks the math. So since 2008, if you're in Guantanamo Bay, you get a federal judge to determine whether you're an enemy combatant. If the federal judge says that you are, they can continue to detain you with no charges. Not illegal. We're at war. We've done this in every war. Now, if the federal judge says you're not an enemy combatant, he can order you released? No. The D.C. Circuit Court has ruled in a case brought against the Obama administration that, yeah, good news and bad news. The district court can say that there's not enough evidence for Obama to detain you as an enemy combatant, but we can't force him to release you. And Obama has held people there for months and months and months after the district court said, you're not an enemy combatant, Obama, you can't hold them. You must release them. He refused to do it. Ever read about that in the New York Times? No. Imagine if McCain won the election and he was holding people after the district court told them that they had to be released. Think you might have read about that in the New York Times? Oh, yeah, every day. So we know that when President Obama took office, he did 3 executive orders. One, I'm going to close down Gitmo. Well, again, this is a propaganda war. What are we apologizing for again, Mr. President? What do we do? Remind me. Because obviously you think Gitmo's bad, so therefore we're closing it down. What do we do? Didn't they incinerate 3,000 people? Aren't we at war? Don't we have the right to detain them indefinitely till the war's over? The answer is yes, yes, yes. So the signal he's sending to the world is that we did something wrong. If we had a president with integrity, he would announce on the second day of office, I'm building another wing onto Gitmo today to hold the new enemy combatants. Now, new enemy combatants. Has Obama collected new enemy combatants since the war on terror began? Yeah. But we can't send them to the evil Bush place because for years, Holder and Obama were demonizing the Bush administration for Gitmo. So we're sending him to Bagram Air Force Base, the nice Obama facility, where there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new people that come in. They have an interagency board. The board asks 2 questions of the new detainee. Do you qualify as an enemy combatant, member of Al-Qaeda, Taliban? If the answer is yes, second question, are you a threat? If the answer is yes, boom, you go into confinement. No charges, no federal judge, no nothing. Now, these law professors I was telling you about that are on the side of the detainees, in 2009, they brought suit against the Obama administration. And they said, hypocrisy. The Supreme Court in 2008 said if you're an enemy combatant held in Gitmo, you get a federal judge to review that determination made by the president. So Obama, you're locking these people up just like Bush did in the nice Obama facility and throwing away the key. They get a federal judge. The Obama administration, did they go into federal district court and say, yes, you're right. Oh, how could we make such a mistake? Of course, we want to be even, because if we criticize the Bush administration for doing that, we would never do the same thing the evil Bush people did. No, they came in and said, I'm Obama. You don't get a federal judge. The district court ruled against the Obama administration, said, no, you get a federal judge to review the status of these new enemy combatants. Just because you put them in Bagram and not in Gitmo is not going to be a means for you to escape the Supreme Court and their ruling in this case. Obama appealed it to the circuit court in D.C. The circuit court overturned the district court and said, no. If Obama puts you in Bagram and not in Gitmo, you don't get a federal judge. We're going to read Mumade very narrowly. That's the name of the case. That case is going up to the Supreme Court. Ever hear about that? Of course not. Now, imagine if McCain won the election and McCain pulled that little trick. Well, I just won't put him in Gitmo anymore. I'll put him in a nice McCain jail where they don't get a federal. Think you might have read about that? Oh, yeah. Mary Lou Retton, whatever that girl's name, looks like Mary Lou Retton on MSNBC. I forget her name. You think she'd be just screaming about that every day? Oh, yeah. Not a peep. I often, when I teach my class, I have a national security class I teach. When I first started, I had 12 students. Now they can't get a room big enough to hold it. And one guy criticized me and said, Addicott, you don't give these students the other side. I said, I don't have to. They live in the other side. I mean, they're drinking the Kool-Aid every day. Every day. Now, why is the Obama administration not criticized? Because the media is in his back pocket. When you hear no news out of Iraq, you've got to assume it's bad over there. When you hear no news out of the Muslim Brotherhood taking control of Israel, of Egypt, oh, that's just that nice Kiwanis Club, the Rotary Club that took over that place. The lower parliament of the Muslim Brotherhood controlled in Egypt 2 days ago, they voted 100% vote to get rid of the treaty with Israel and to kick out the Israeli ambassador out of Cairo. Real helpful. And yet, we're spending billions of dollars to support this regime. Oh, but they're bad. Liberals are amazing because they say, well, the United States, how can you dare work with a dictator? And then they don't realize that the United Nations, a third of them are dictators, and they worship at the altar of internationalism. And the United Nations is their God. You deal with them all the time. And yet a third of them are bloodthirsty, ruthless dictators that have no regard for human rights or freedoms in any category. And yet you go gaga-eyed over the United Nations. Now your congregations, of course, they should all be nationalist. If they, God's a capitalist. Thou shalt not steal. Recognizes the private ownership of property, and on and on and on. And people can connect the dots. They can connect the dots. Okay, so we are at war. I've just established that we're at war. I've intellectually destroyed Susan Herman. What is her argument? Well, the same argument it always is. They have these small little anecdotal stories. And she started talking about the one story of poor Ahmed that we got the wrong guy down at Gitmo. So I felt like getting my violin out and giving accompaniment to her legal argument. It's not a legal argument. We got the wrong guy. Oh, well. I had a friend of mine lost both legs in Grenada by friendly fire. It happens. We don't have a perfect system, but liberals are amazing. They demand perfection in the government. And I always tell them, look in the mirror. You are imperfect. How can you have a perfect system when you're dealing with imperfect beings? And multiply the number of imperfect beings, and what are you going to have? We have the best system the world has ever seen. I'm convinced of it. Doesn't mean it'll be around in 20 years from now. But with all the nonsense that we have, we still have freedom. We still have freedom. So we're at war, and that was her argument. That's it. That's all she had. And so when I was invited to Tennessee, and I'll finish that story, because I really don't have early Alzheimer. I come back to them. Remember, after I did the debate, 2 weeks later, they called and said, Addicott, we want you to come to our law school and debate these knuckleheads. I said, that's fine. I said, get 2 or 3 just to make it fair, because it's getting kind of boring. And the barbecue was good. So as we got, and they were actually going to pay me a 6-figure honorarium, which is always good. And so they said, if we got closer, I said, well, who am I debating? And they go, well, we haven't figured it out yet. And I said, well, okay. And we're like 3 days out. Who am I debating? We still haven't got him. You still want me to come? Yeah. And so when I got there, the day before, the guy I was debating came into the debate, and nothing against the dress style, but he's wearing sandals, has a beard, and I like beard. Robert Lee had a nice beard, but it hasn't been shaved. It's like out here. Not in good shape. I don't hold that against him. But he had lived in Nicaragua, in the Ortega paradise down there, for about 7 years doing social justice work. He had this wild-eyed look about himself. And he came in, and his arguing points were that 9/11 was an inside job. And he ran the social justice clinic there in Knoxville. So I've got all these wonderful notes prepared. I didn't have my teleprompter, but I had my notes prepared. And I was going to, just fire them up. And what are you going to say to somebody that's who you're going to debate? That's all they could get. No other law professor will debate me anymore. That's all they got. And so I said, this is the best you got? So what am I going to do? So I said, I just had to have fun with the guy. I said, when I came out to speak, I said, that also I've got some information for you that I just discovered because, I know a lot of secret stuff because I was in the Special Forces. I was a senior legal advisor to all the Green Berets, and I know secret stuff. And guess what? The Queen of England was also involved in that. What else can you tell the guy? And of course, then he launches into the ad hominem attacks using, bad language. And I just kind of, yeah, buddy, I got you. So that's where we're at. So the war on terror, we are at war. Internationally, we're at war. Domestically, we're at war. Weapons of mass destruction are a serious issue. The civil liberties issues, I've got 4 minutes to cover the USA Patriot Act. The USA Patriot Act, in a nutshell, and it's all in his book, it is not the boogeyman. It's the most benign piece of legislation you can ever imagine, despite all the media propaganda. How did you know it was evil? Did you read it? No, we just know it's evil. Bush, evil, evil, evil. Obama demonized it, but did you know that Senator Obama voted for it after he demonized it? They use it for political. They use a political piñata. It has 3 major provisions. It didn't make any new laws, folks. It amended existing laws. And here's the phenomenal, issues that are associated with the Patriot Act. Number 1, it allows for roving wiretaps. In the old days, you had to get a hard phone line. You had to get a judge to authorize the warrant to the phone. Well, those days are gone. The bad guys have 18 cell phones. You got to get the wiretap to the person as they switch the cell phones. And is that so bizarre? It's common sense. Second one, did you know they had sneak and peek warrants where they can go in your house and sneak around and then they'll leave? Yeah, it's been around for decades. They've using it against drug lords for decades. You go to the judge, you get a warrant. You have to have information provided to the judge, that the judge will evaluate that. If it reaches the standard, well, he will issue the warrant. He'll issue a warrant to go in. You sneak around when the person's not there to find the bigger fish. And then you come back later, arrest him, arrest the bigger fish. They've merely expanded that to terrorism. And then the last one is the one I love the most. Did you know they had secret judges that are appointed by the Supreme Court, and they're in Washington, D.C., and nobody knows their names, and they issue warrants for people to go out and arrest you? Yeah, that's been around since 1979. It's called the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. I'm glad you just discovered it. Has nothing to do with the Patriot Act, but that's very nice that you kind of just got in tune to these secret judges. But the key word is a warrant. So the Patriot Act, the bottom line is very benign. But the bottom line is, if you're trying to stop these people at the airport, you're too late. The time to stop them is before they get to the airport, before they get to the bus station. In the back of this book, I've got case after case after case after case of jihadists. These people don't qualify as enemy combatants because they're not Al-Qaeda. They're infected with the virus of radical Islam. We have to try them in federal court. That's where Holder is schizophrenic. Remember, I've got 10 enemy combatants. 5 are going to New York City for trial in domestic criminal court. 5 are going to military commissions. And people said, what? That doesn't make sense. If they're enemy combatants, they should all go to military commissions. If they're just jihadists, domestic criminals, then we have to try them in federal court. That's not the issue, Holder. And so Holder wraps himself in the American flag, very indignant. Our federal courts can try any case. That's not the issue. If they're enemy combatants, they go to military commissions. Stop trying to confuse the people. Because the people rose up when he made that decision. They said, that's the dumbest thing we ever heard. You're not sending them to New York. Not going to happen. And then a year and a half later, he revised his decision. Oh, now I guess we can use military commissions. But it's the most gobbledygook piece of legal schizophrenia I have ever seen. Well, I guess not ever seen, but it's bad. It's bad. They have no idea what they're doing because politics plays everything to them. When the president brought home troops from Iraq, he said, I'm keeping my political promise. I don't care about your political promise. We're in the fourth quarter of a football game. We're 2 touchdowns ahead, and he pulls all our troops off the field to see what happens. That was the one time you should not take them out. And now in Afghanistan, we've lost the war in Afghanistan. We had an opportunity. I've got 30 seconds. We had an opportunity to emerge with victory in our wings. 3 things you do when you win a war. You identify the enemy, you identify their center of gravity, and you crush them. 2 years ago, a CNN reporter asked President Obama, how do you define victory in Afghanistan? Quote, I'm not comfortable with that word. What? You're fired. You can't define victory and you're sending our people in there to get killed? You got to be kidding me. No, I'm not kidding you. We're going to negotiate with the new Taliban. What? Anyway, we had an opportunity to get out of that place with victory. That rarely do you find a pivot point in history where you can get out with victory, particularly in asymmetrical warfare. When we killed Osama bin Laden, he should have got on TV and done the mission accomplished speech. My predecessor, George Bush, closed down the terror camps, drove the Taliban out of power. After 10 years, I have killed Osama bin Laden. We've cut the head off the snake, used the personal pronoun, I don't care, and we're leaving. Wow, the world would have bought that narrative. I said, yeah, that makes sense. Instead, like a deer in the headlight, we're not leaving. We're going to negotiate with the new Taliban. Now, we can keep the lid on as long as we have forces on the ground. The day we leave is the day we lose. You can't define victory. I guarantee you the enemy will. Here's what they're going to say when we leave. We drove the Soviets out, and by Allah, we have driven the Americans out, and thousands will flock to the banner of radical Islam. Well, if he would have pulled us out when God gave him this golden opportunity. Helen Keller could have seen it. And he couldn't seize it. Unbelievable. Anyway, I will take some questions, or is the fun meter expired? Fun meter expired?
All right, great. Thanks, Jeff. We'll have about 5 minutes or so to take a couple of questions. Anybody got any questions? Okay, well, I'll go back here. I saw this one first.
Could you give us some insight or opinion on the somewhat controversial targeting of the American in Yemen that was assassinated?
Yeah, Anwar al-Awlaki. I wrote
would you rather do that on the panel?
Oh, we can do it on a panel. You want to do it on a panel?
No, do it now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
In brief, good kill. I wrote a very detailed article. You can go to our website. In fact, if you want to get on our propaganda mailing list, we don't send out a lot of stuff, but it's all good propaganda. I'll pass out some sheets. You can just send me your email. We announce conferences. They're all free. Good kill. It doesn't matter if you're a U.S. citizen or not. If you're designated as an enemy combatant, we can kill you anywhere we find you, including the United States. Now, we tell the FBI, because these people don't wear uniforms, if you see an al-Qaeda member eating at the Burger King, don't shoot him in the back of the head. You could, but it might not be a member of al-Qaeda. It might be just a domestic jihadist, and you have to use the domestic rules associated with the use of violence. That is, they have to exhibit deadly violence, et cetera, et cetera. But in the military function, that's when you want to kill them, is when they're not shooting back at you. So that's a good kill. Bottom line, good kill. We had a German in World War II that was a U.S. citizen that FDR executed. And he said, I'm a U.S. citizen. That's fine. Tell the executioner on your way out the door.
There was somebody else over here. Okay.
As the mother of an Army veteran and mother-in-law of a son-in-law who just returned from Afghanistan Saturday, this is very dear and near to my heart. Are some of our current, in your opinion, some of our current military advisors as inept as they sound publicly?
Of course they are. I got to tell you a funny story. I got a call from 2 Wall Street Journal reporters, and they said, Addicott, we know you know secret stuff. We know that you know that Rumsfeld is running a secret interrogation at Guantanamo Bay. And I looked at these guys and said, you're Wall Street Journal reporters. I said, I wish we were that competent to run a program all the way from the White House down to Tier 1 at Abu Ghraib. I said, I've been in the military for 20 years. There's no way we're that competent to run such a thing. Yeah, they're made up of human beings. And as I said, when we represent these soldiers, these are other soldiers doing it to other soldiers for power lust, basically. And so that exists, and that's a function of the military. And, as a mature believer, we call it good training. When you get persecuted, it's an opportunity to grow. You say, wow, as a Marine, you say, well, can I have some more persecutions? I can grow a little bit more? But yeah, they are incompetent. It's there.
Yes, and thank you for the presentation, by the way, phenomenal.
My question goes to Homeland Terrorism and the recent news about 35 areas of concern by the FBI. Do you know of, without giving anything away, do you know of anything that they are actually doing with regard to that, Homeland Security?
Yeah, the Department of Homeland Security, and I've had a lot of relationship with the Department of Homeland Security. Janet Napolitano, first of all, is a political animal, and all of them, to a degree, are going to be political animals. But it's a bureaucracy, and the vision was to take these other, these separated functions of government, bring them into one umbrella, and therefore it'll streamline it. It's worked to a degree, but it hasn't worked to a degree. We spend billions and billions of dollars. I'm much more for spending money on intelligence gathering. Again, stop them before they get to the airport. But the politics that plays in this stuff, I'll give you a quick 30-second story. I'll talk real fast, even though I'm from Alabama. Remember when Napolitano put out that memo? She said, we got to watch for right-wing extremists. And, yeah, do we have right-wing extremists in this country? Yes. Do we have left-wing? Yes. But the biggest threat is radical Islam, by far. By far. The 2007 Pew study said that 1/4 of all Muslims in this country between the ages of 18 and 26 believe that it's justified to murder in the name of Islam. That's a Pew survey, not me. So do we have, at a hospital, you triage, take the most serious threat first. The most serious threat is radical Islam. But they wanted to ban that term. They wanted to ban the term war on terror. I've got the memo in here. She lists the characteristics of people we need to watch. She said we need to watch people that are returning veterans, me. We need to watch people that are not satisfied with the way the government's securing the border, southern border, me. And then she said something that's just incredible. We need to watch out for people that believe in limited government. Oh, I kid you not. Google it. Now, Janet, it's called the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. It's like these people are sitting around a Harvard coffee shop thinking about everything they hate about America. We were founded as a limited government, Janet. Anyway, I emailed them and turned myself in for the 10th time. But this is the mental attitude of these people. And by the grace of God, we've got some hard-working FBI agents that are in the trenches that are doing their job, keeping their mouth shut. I can say these things because, I'm no longer in uniform. When I was in uniform, I was apolitical. I just did my job. So there are programs that go on, but the political correctness has seeped into the FBI. I can give you some personal stories offline, but I was fired for a year because of some of these political correctness, but I was rehired. When I say hired, they pay my airfare. That's it. They don't give me any extra money to assist the FBI at Quantico. Hey, Bob.
One question here.
Okay.
Have you seen that the New York Police Department is being criticized for surveillance of radical
yes.
Islam
yes.
in the mosques?
Yes, and I've commented on what is happening in the New York Police Department. Again, I know this group hasn't seen, but you've probably heard about the video called Girls Gone Wild from some source. The Girls Gone Wild, some of them sued because they said, there's some off-color photos of me appearing here and there. Well, how do they get to be off-colored? You're walking around in public in those types of outfits or non-outfits, and then you're surprised when people take your picture. So what the New York Police Department, by and large, is doing, they're not doing anything illegal. They're going to the websites that is open information. So if you don't want your pictures up there, and of course in the blogosphere, everybody wants to tell you about that they walked their dog today and all the wonderful things they're doing, which I'm very sure that's important. But that's where they got most of the information. Is open source information. They're not going to get there's nothing illegal about what they did. Is it smart? It's a different question, but it's not illegal, and I've commented several times at different forums on that.
All right, it's time for our lunch break. Jeff, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bobby.
Appreciate it. Remember, it's 11:40 now. We'll be taking our lunch break. We've got lunch for everybody back in the fellowship hall back here, and then we're passing out a handout right now that Jeff had on the misuse of religion in the global war on terrorism. And then at 1 o'clock, Elias Saratovsky will be here to talk about AIPAC. So we'll be back in here for that at 1 o'clock.